had over 100 individual meetings. We've had workshops, town halls, interviews, and this process is ongoing.
Senator Risch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to enter in the record, I've written 5 letters to the agency in recent months, one on solar, one on mission and purpose, 2 on Zimbabwe, and finally on Brazil climate matters.
Without objection.
And first of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Nathan. As you know, I put a hold on opening the office in Brazil because it was solely focused on climate, and I wanted a broader aperture than just climate. Yeah. You agreed to that. I lifted my hold. Thank you very much. That's the way things should work. Let's talk for a minute about solar. It's common knowledge, of course, that that there is slave labor involved in the solar industry through China, and people are concerned about that. So, what can you tell us? What sideboards do you have in place to make sure that the United States isn't financing projects that entail slave labor?
Well, thank you, Senator. I appreciated the dialogue that we've had with both you and your team since I've been in place on this important issue. I absolutely agree that there's no place for slave labor in any supply chain that gets the support of the United States. Under the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, the Forced Labor Enforcement Task Force was created. And while that act doesn't bind DFC, we are following the rules that are outlined in that piece of legislation. The FLEDF list of companies that are prohibited is one that is incorporated into our contractual requirements in any solar deal we do. But beyond that, we have a strategy to diversify the solar supply chain away from China. In the last 18 months, we've made 2 investments, one to a U.S. company called First Solar that is building and is about to open a solar power manufacturing facility in Tamil Nadu in southern India. This plant will produce cadmium telluride based technology panels that have no involvement with China in any way. Recently, our board approved another transaction, a $425 million loan to TP Solar for solar panel manufacturing in India, again, diversifying away from China. This is a strategy that we want to deploy elsewhere and are looking for more opportunities to diversify the solar manufacturing supply chain away from China entirely.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a good explanation. I'm assuming that you have a team of some kind that knows the industry and the supply chain and can smell these things out if you've got Uyghur influence.
Absolutely.
Chinese Uyghur influence.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I want to talk a little bit about the balancing act that you have, and I understand it is a balancing act. I want to give you an example. Let's have a discussion of it so all of us can have a little better understanding. Suppose you're faced with a situation in a developing country where the developing country has a considerable resource or access to coal, and they want to build a coal plant. Obviously, they will contact you, and certainly they would engage the Russians and the Chinese also. How do you meet that? And obviously, you're going to say to them, well, is there another way we can do this other than coal? They say, no, there isn't. What do you do? How do you balance that?
Yeah, so we're constantly balancing the probability of a deal getting through all the different eligibility criteria, statutory criteria we have, the requirement to do social, labor, environmental screening, meeting the IFC performance standards. We want to be realistic with our partners, not take things down the road and then at the end of the day not be able to close on a transaction. But these transactions take time. Some of the transactions that we approved in the last year were initiated in 2019 or 2020. So this is also part of the balancing act that we're undergoing. But we look at all of the different factors involved: development impact, employment, human rights, all of the factors that go into our analysis. And at the end of the day, if we can support projects that generate economic opportunity and have strategic impact, then I feel like we're doing what the BUILD Act is intended for us to do.
Let me drill down a little deeper. So if the scenario I painted for you comes on your desk, and it's a coal-fired plant or nothing, and the Chinese are going to build it if we don't, is this a no? Is that an automatic disqualifier that it's a coal?
I'm sorry, I missed the sector that you're talking about. My understanding is that its administration policy agreed with our G7 allies to provide no financing to the coal industry at the moment.
So in that case, China'd wind up with the project.
Yeah, although my understanding is that China has also articulated that they won't finance coal projects either.
Yeah,
But
we've all seen how that's worked.
yeah, I understand that. That's why I said they've articulated it.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
well, my time's up, but thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Certainly. We'll now turn to the person who can really tell you about the congressional intent of the BUILD Act. It's